Welcome to episode 7 of the Zelda Book Club. This episode we covered the chapters The Haunted Wasteland and A Fateful Reunion. We were curious about, what the implications these chapter titles had.
So, obviously The Haunted Wasteland sounds like it's going to talk about the Haunted Wasteland.
But it starts out with Link being accompanied by Ruto.
Fighting Morpha. Just jump right to the end.
Yeah,
There's one scene with King Zora.
You just kind of see him.
Just a lot of continuity issues here. Because the last chapter ended with Link saying, alright, off to the Haunted Wasteland. What's more of a Haunted Wasteland than, the boss chamber of the Water Temple?
He went in the total wrong direction. We talked in the last episode about how his path has made no sense. I would like to see his hero's path.
There's always those memes in Zelda. It's like, alright, the kingdom is under fire, everybody's dying, and then Link is like fishing.
Fishing, yeah.
He's like, yeah, just goes wherever he wants.
It doesn't, I got time. We're in the water temple for a brief period, but we see the center pillar, and we see the boss room. So it's cool to see some of the inside of it. It looked exactly like the game.
And the boss, Link uses the hook shot.
No long shot, I guess. And no iron boots, right? He just swims there.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the iron boots will appear 2 chapters from now.
He probably has the tunic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got the boss fight with Morpha, but this time Ruto is there with him, much like the Baronade fight. Ruto's actually trapped in a bubble for a second.
Yeah, I didn't know if he got swallowed up by Morpha. He just uses the hookshot and destroys Morpha.
Yeah, it was not a big deal at all. And we're kind of just, Ruto's a sage.
They might have been writing the book there. All right, this is getting long or something. We forgot a sage. Let's include them in for 3 pages. Ruto got the Darunia treatment here.
She psychs him out for a second where she says something about marrying him again.
Yeah, but then she's like, oh, I can't because I'm a sage.
She's like, what are you going to do next? And he's like, I'm going to the Haunted Wasteland. It's like, are we to believe you really are going to go there?
What actually happened between the end of the Water Temple and him actually going to the Haunted Wasteland?
He actually goes to the desert.
Well, he goes to a shop first, or a town. This is clearly a location that's not in the game. He picks up some arrows. He picks up some water for his flask or something like that.
And then he, I guess, encounters fortune tellers who are clearly up to no good.
Yeah. Well, those are it's
Twin Rofa.
Yeah. There's no spoilers here.
The fortune tellers straight up tell him to go to the Spirit Temple.
We get a name drop of the Spirit Temple,
which is, I think it's them trying to trap him in the desert, I suppose.
Because they swirl up the sandstorm that occurs.
When they send him off, they want Sheikah to go and take him down too.
Yeah, but they already suspect Sheikah at this point. This was the obvious Sheikah was going to turn on them.
Right.
And they knew it. And they still sent him out.
Well, I guess they clearly had a backup plan for it.
They also had Naburu.
Jumping ahead a little bit, why not just mind control Sheikah too?
I don't know. For all the magic that they have, they're not very good at judging characters here.
When Link's traveling with Sheikah, they get a little bit more of the Sheikah backstory, which I don't think we get as much in the game.
Yeah, they had a whole thing about the symbol with the eye and a teardrop.
Yeah, they added a tear after the Hyrule royal family betrayed them.
Yeah, that's some deep stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's canonical. I don't ever remember hearing that, but I'm not too familiar with the backstory lore.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's still pretty interesting to see it. Then actually, Link, he gets a moment to kind of unload a bit too. I think this was some more emotion in this chapter than the other ones. We actually find out some more of what these characters think, other than I gotta save the world. He's like, I gotta find Zelda, but I haven't even seen her, and so.
Well, he's sad about losing his 7 years. He wants to be a kid again, I think, a little bit.
Well, he says something about Zelda's probably lived 7 years and stuff like that, and it was kind of in a romantic way. You met her once as a kid. First love is a hard thing. But yeah, then he does go to sleep, and then gets some disturbing images.
Yeah, there's Dark Darunia. I saw. Did you see that?
The biggest one though, Volvagia.
Yes, Volvagia comes back.
It hurts, Link.
They've gone back and forth with these dream sequences a few times now in the game. in the book. And sometimes I have to reread it. You don't really understand what the author is saying without... I have to think about that. The Great Deku Tree appears in this for one scene or something. I don't even think he says anything. But I remember that happened in the past. I'm like, oh, he's back at... oh, no. Wait, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And then I have to... oh, it's a dream sequence.
Part of this was a little confusing just because he was, like, falling asleep, but then he was, like, awake and seeing things.
Right, yeah. Like, is this actually happening, or is this a dream?
So while he's seeing these disturbing images, they get ambushed.
Sheik is pretty much put in a tight spot here. The Gerudo are serving Ganondorf, and Sheik is supposed to be serving Ganondorf. He has to put on a bit of an act here. So he just, like, belts Link over the head and knocks him out. It doesn't make sense in the context of what happens, like, 2 pages or 3 pages later. So this scenario is, it's Link, Sheik, and a pack of Gerudo. Sheik makes the decision, I've lost my cover here, and nails Link, knocks him out. Mm-hmm. They take Link to the Gerudo fortress, throw him in the prison cell.
Is it Nabooru who's threatening him? She says, I'm going to use you for target practice, which is both a really cool threatening thing to say, but also a little reference to the Gerudo target practice.
Then Link busts out of his prison. He steals the hookshot.
He hookshots up like in the game. That was cool.
I like that they have a picture of the Gerudo fortress, by the way. And it's exactly how it appears in the game. There's no difference. They're like in an area in the sand area right in front of the fortress. And then they pull out their sword. And then Sheik appears. But now we're in a scenario where it's, again, Sheik and Link surrounded by Gerudo. But then this time, Sheik decides to help Link.
Yeah, if there was any time for Sheik to help Link, it would have been more when they were away from the fortress.
But, like, it was literally the same scene almost.
Maybe it's easier for them if they're not in the haunted wasteland, you know? Everything we just said is basically the chapter.
Sheik is wounded.
And Link notices the mark of the Triforce on Sheik's hand. The next chapter just basically begins off of that.
Yeah, like these chapters flow very smoothly from one to the other. It's almost as if they're one chapter.
Which is almost like how you'd think the whole book would almost go.
Right, but like as we learned from the last few chapters, there's entire segments where they don't even include in the book because they're jumping around. Like he just appears at the water temple or, you know, suddenly he has a hookshot that he got earlier in the game.
Like in previous chapters, it would have totally made sense to have them flow together.
Right, yeah.
Like Death Mountain to Kakariko Village, if that's what you're going to do. Or
the next chapter starts and Sheik is wounded. And Link is like carrying him.
And this is where we also see that Nabooru was being brainwashed. There's a great gag when Nabooru is trying to protect Link and Sheik, where they cut the broom of one of the Twin Rova people, and they're like looking at it. And then Epona just shows up.
Well, Epona did come to the haunted wasteland. Like there's a picture I think of like the sand's almost like gobbling him up. Like only his head is above the sand.
Maybe they brought Epona over and imprisoned Epona in Gerudo Fortress too. You know, there was a pretty amazing scene of Link battling some moblins and Lizalfos on Epona.
I think there's a picture of the sword in a dead Lizalfos' head or something.
Oh, really?
I like that they included because I think this is the first time we've seen Lizalfos.
I don't even think have we seen moblins in the manga yet?
No, I don't think so.
Then they escape to the Desert Colossus.
One thing I like they reference is they're like, oh, I saw an oasis out there. I don't know if you recall in the Desert Colossus, there's like an area where it's like a water fountain portion, and there's fairies there, I believe.
That's when Zelda is revealed now. Before anything really gets to happen, Twin Rova shows up. They had a pretty intense line. One of them says, I'll burn your bones black with my fire.
Yeah, I know.
That one says, I'll freeze your soul.
I know. I was like reading that. I'm like, whoa.
There was a pretty awesome image of Link like almost getting completely frozen too.
And this is the closest thing we've gotten to any sort of dungeon crawling, because if you look like in the background, it shows Link and Zelda sort of running away, and you see like the main chamber of the Spirit Temple where like it's got the staircases going up. They're running down one of the familiar looking hallways. Like this is actually a temple.
So they start blasting Link with fire. And there's a pretty intense scene of him blocking it with the shield, but it's not working, and he says something like his hand's starting to burn.
You can see Zelda's like all worried as well. It felt realistic.
Then we get much like Mido in the Forest Temple, and the Buru shows up and tosses him the mirror shield.
Yeah.
They did mention something about like, oh, the mirror shield is in the Spirit Temple.
So it's like they knew there was an item deep in the temple, and they were looking for it and couldn't find it.
So that's like the only reason in the manga it seems that it's a point of interest. But why would Twinrova tell him to go there when it has an item that could be used to defeat them?
Yeah, well, this is Zelda. So he
kills him immediately.
I was hoping to see some sort of like post-death scene of Twinrova.
Oh, like in the
floating
in the
away or something. It's like the post scene where now Nabooru is talking to Zelda and Link. They're like, "How'd you get the mirror shield?" They're like, "Oh, I came and stole it from the Spirit Temple," and then she's like, kind of ashamed, like, "Oh, sorry."
Isn't Navi like, Link almost died? Because So we get a little bit of flashback there of young Zelda explaining to Sheik. It was like Zelda's plan
to Impa,
yeah. There was a cool idea. That's not what happens in the game.
We don't really know what Sheik does in the game.
But there is a moment where Sheik intentionally reveals herself to be Zelda in the game. Sheik seems to be aware that there's Zelda. Where in this, when Zelda is revealed, she's like, Impa, where are you? So like Zelda has also been unaware that she was Zelda.
I don't know what they do, like cast a spell to hide the inner Zelda or something like that.
They like hid her consciousness.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Her vessel thought that she was a young boy named Sheik. Link even says like, oh, it's too bad I'll never talk to Sheik again.
Is that really the first thing you'd think of? You just met your childhood friend, your love interest, you went through battle. It's like, oh, I miss Sheik already. Like,
I don't think it's intentional, but there was that scene where Link was talking about he missed those years of his life.
Yeah.
And Zelda experienced all these years, but she hasn't. Not to jump ahead too far, but spoilers for how the game ends. Zelda eventually sends Link back to childhood. So that would be kind of fitting if that does happen in this. They go back to being children because they just are still children in adult bodies,
Well, if you do look at the names of the last chapters, there's only 2 more chapters here. And the next one, it's titled Ganondorf Defeated. I wonder what happens. And then the final chapter is called A New Journey Begins. So there's clearly a post-credits scene here. And I'm thinking that's what happens.
The chapter does end. They almost hold hands. They find out they got that Ganondorf knows what's going on. And puts her in the little crystal thing.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the Temple of Time theme scene from the game. Floats away and Ganon's like, Ganondorf, if you want to save your lovely princess, meet me at my castle.
Calls him out, and we're gonna, like you said, Ganondorf will be defeated. Spoilers.
Unless that chapter is a misleading chapter. And
what a twist that would be. Why not? What's your overall opinion of these chapters?
I didn't like them. It kind of felt a little rushed at the beginning with the water temple. Like it just threw it out there in like 3 pages. Then we got like 40 pages dedicated to the wasteland, the Spirit Temple, and the Desert Colossus. And it feels like this has been a problem throughout the book, where they spent a lot of time on certain segments and then just totally skip over, brush over complete characters. We talked about Darunia quite a bit. Ruto didn't get much time as a child, and now just got brushed over a little bit.
Yeah, for me, I was thinking there would be parts that I wasn't stoked on, but I was like, they'll probably redeem this later, But then there was no follow-up on so many things.
I did like that they went to a lot of the familiar locations. Like, we got to see a lot more of that in this chapter in particular, because we got to see the fortress, the Colossus, the Spirit Temple, and the wasteland. No carpenters, though.
No carpenters, yeah.
I want to see them running.
There was a lot of things in this chapter that was cool to see, but the Zora part, that really bothered me, and some of the inconsistencies I think are weird. Not between the book and the game, but just the book itself.
I don't even think they mentioned Lake Hylia.
I think it's implied that they were there. That's what kind of confuses me, is there's elements of this book where it's like, things because you read them or you played the game. Some of the things they change just don't make sense. And it's like, well, if you didn't know the game, that probably wouldn't bother you. But then they clearly expect you to know the game. I think it was definitely confirmed he's not awakening Impa. You know, he's not going to no Shadow Temple or anything.
Yeah, that was the Shadow Temple fighting Dark Link in Kakariko Village.
Well, that's not to leave it on such a downer note.
Yeah,
I'll say overall it's been a very interesting experience, and I'm still excited to see what Ganondorf defeated and A New Journey Begins have to offer.
I'm also really excited to see what happens in Ganondorf Defeated.
It was ridiculous. I'm excited to see what happens with the sages, like why that mattered in the book. You know, if they're just gonna make a bridge, or
I hope they do more than that. That'd be a little ridiculous.
I hope they make a lot of bridges.
Nothing but bridges. Wow.
Let us know what you thought about these chapters. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Maybe give us some predictions of what you think's gonna happen next. And thank you for watching. Ridiculous. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Also click right here and you can subscribe. You'll know whenever we have new videos. Also, you might want to check out some of these other videos that we've made. If you like this video, you'll probably like them. And again, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.